Native Land Pod is a production of iHeartRadio in partnership with Reasoned Choice Media. Guys, this is Andrew Gillum. This is also Tiffany Cross, and this is Angela Rye. And together we make up what? Native Land Pod. Welcome, everybody. What y'all up to, ladies?
Welcome home, y'all. Welcome home.
Happy Valentine's Day, because that's recording day. Happy Black History Month.
Happy Black History Month.
I was about to check in with y'all. Y'all live the most fabulous lives. I mean, I think I've seen y'all at fashion shows. We were together in New York.
Sergio Hudson. Shout out to Sergio Hudson.
Hopefully, y'all are having or expect to have an amazing Valentine's Day. By the time you all are in listening room, I hope everybody at home had a lovely one. Either you were loving the one you were with or you were loving being by yourself. Either way, I'm just happy for you. Okay? Happy Valentine's. All right. So we've had, since the last time we were together, the Super Bowl done gone, the Valentine's Day done gone, Usher gone, and them, Taylor Swift, she's still here.
And them. Usher's still here. Usher's going on tour. What you mean? And guy is a married man in Vegas.
I saw the news. Well, yeah. What is Vegas for if it's not for a shotgun wedding?
No comment.
Residency.
In other news, what the hell have y'all been up to, ladies?
Okay, I can say what we've been up to. We did go to Fashion Week, New York Fashion Week, and nice. Angela encouraged me to wear a ponytail, which I've never done. I felt like my forehead is too big for that, and now that I've worn this ponytail, I will be wearing it in perpetuity. So
I'm loving it.
Show everybody, Tiff.
Yes, I'm showing. I whip my hair back and forth.
What y'all think out there in pod world?
And
y'all
I want y'all to know,
y'all
Andrew's been making fun of me, talking about somebody please get that horse some water that's waiting outside.
Listen.
So rude.
It was out of respect for all animal life.
Yeah, well, you know how I feel about that.
All mammal life. All mammal life.
You know how I feel
all
about
mammal
that.
Life.
But yeah, we've been kicking it.
Angela?
We went to Sergio Hudson's fashion show.
Amazing.
In particular. And that's our time where we all reconnect. It's our little girl time, and we love it. So,
all right. So if people want to know what y'all were wearing for Fashion Week,
of course.
Sergio Hudson.
There it is.
Sergio.
Okay.
From head to toe. We were Sergio down to the socks. We were Sergio.
Down to the socks.
Yeah.
Didn't even have no socks on.
Right.
Yes.
Right. It was a good time. What you been up to, Andrew? Because we hadn't seen you since we were last together.
You know what? The last time we were together, you said to me, Tiffany, that the Rattlers have been looking for me.
Yes.
So I decided to let y'all find me. I'm right here, baby. This family all the way.
Hey, Rattlers.
Representing my orange and green. Go Rattlers, go Rattlers, go Rattlers. Strike, strike, strike again. I am a proud alumnus of Florida A&M University and former student body president on the board of trustees. I'm a lifetime member of the Alumni Association.
Yes.
And if you're not, stop repping until you get paid up, y'all. Pay up, okay?
Andrew, I love that you said, let me tell you about this Black History I made for Black History.
Right. And I mean, just a really quick point about what you're saying about pay up, because a lot of HBCUs alumni, you ask, did you have a nurturing environment there? And people say yes. And then it's like, do you give back to your school? And then a lot of people say no. So I love that point, Andrew. Thank you.
Tiffany, folks got debt. I get it.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying.
Every little bit helps.
Every little bit.
Okay, on this episode, we're going to discuss Biden is old. The special prosecutor's report put the president's cognitive abilities back at the center of the 2024 election conversation. Democrat Tom Souzzi wins George Santos' former congressional seat, Long Island, New York. Should anyone be joking about George Floyd's death? And it's almost time for the All-Star Game, which you all know you can't resist. Our friend Tiffany Cross's brilliant sports commentary. We also get to the viewers' questions, our favorite part of the pod. Stay tuned, everybody, and welcome home. Tiff, Angela, I don't really know where to begin except where we have to begin. But in the meantime, between time, y'all, Trump then lost at the D.C. appeals court. He wants the Supreme Court to issue a writ of certiorari to bring the case to the U.S. Supreme Court to do what? Stop the January 6th trial. He wants to put that on postponement. Anybody have an answer as to why, Tiffany?
I don't. I honestly, I gotta just be honest. I'm exhausted with talking about Trump. I know he's the front runner of the Republican Party, and we have to talk about it. But honestly, one thing, Andrew, that frustrates me is people talk about Biden's age and compare it like it has, like Trump is not the existential threat, not just to America, but the globe. So to me, all the indictments, and I can't even keep up with all Trump's challenges. I've often said trying to cover him and all his scandals is like trying to catch confetti. And when I hear people make this false equivalence, like, oh, but Biden's old. It's like, yeah, Trump is old and he's crooked and he's a traitor and he is an existential threat to the globe. So I kind of want to address some of these issues that people seem to have with Biden's age, which I do think is a legitimate concern, but it pales in comparison to the concern from the other frontrunner, in my opinion.
So let's get into it. Oh, Angela, you were already there. You want to take it from there?
Sure. I was just going to say, Tiff, to your point, 86% of Americans agree that Joe Biden is too old and they're concerned. And then 62% of Americans agree that Trump is too old and they're concerned. So therefore, a majority of Americans think that Joe Biden and Donald Trump are too old for the presidency, according to this latest ABC News Ipsos poll. I think that what we now have before us is there's an elephant in the room, no pun intended, because of Special Prosecutor Robert Hur's recent report where he, quote, says he's a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. And I think that what we really see is someone who took a flamethrower approach. Merrick Garland appointed a Trump appointee to be special prosecutor, probably in the name of fairness, because somebody asked him to do that. I'm asking for his resignation at this point. But what he also indicates very clearly is that Joe Biden cannot be charged in this classified documents case. And it's not because he was a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory. It's because there was no case that they could prosecute. We all know when they got a little bit of something, they're going to go forward with it. Because they couldn't, I think that speaks volumes.
Yeah.
So on this point, again, to just encapsulate this around age, Joe Biden is the oldest sitting president at this time at 81. Donald Trump, by the time, if he were elected in the fall, would then be tied with Ronald Reagan at 78 years old for being the second oldest. I think that we should always be taking into consideration age, mental ability, fitness for attorneys. We have to do character fitness. We don't have to do psychological evaluations, but I think that is fair game for the president of the United States. And furthermore, when you look at corporate boards, 72, you have to be 72 or under for most corporate boards. For CEOs, you have to be 65 and under. These are fair points. But again, when to Teff's point, there's an existential crisis. Democracy is on the line. Would you rather take an old fool or a fascist?
Right.
I'll take the old fool.
Yeah. And I don't think a lot of people are paying attention to the minutia of politics, right? I don't think people are.
Yeah.
Like the whole thing with Biden and the campaign documents, unless you're like sitting in the echo chambers watching cable news 24 hours a day, people aren't talking about that. You know, like people hear, oh, Biden's old and Trump is crooked. Like those are the two. People have a tendency to read the headlines and not the story. I think if you look at these two candidates and see what the implications are from each of them, when Trump was in office, his own staff consistently talked about evoking the 25th Amendment. It was not the media calling for that. It was his staff. No, you have not heard anything like that from Joe Biden's camp. And I'm not here to be a spokesperson for Biden or an apologist for the party. I think we have to acknowledge it's a legitimate concern about his age. But you got two choices right now. And so if you're thinking about, I'm going to sit this out because I'm not excited about either candidate, or if you're thinking, that you're confused about who to vote for because they're both old, I think both of those are bad choices. And Andrew, you've said this. You said when you sit out, that is making a decision.
You're making a decision.
Yeah.
What
are your thoughts on all this, Andrew? Because you've run for office so many times and you know how much energy it takes.
And won.
Yes. And you know what energy it takes. I mean, what do you think about how this is going? There's not going to be another like Joe Biden is he is the soldier we take into this war. So what?
They could
yeah.
pull an upset at the convention. They could.
Well,
I don't think it would happen, but maybe.
I'm just saying they could.
Hopefully we'll be uneventful at the convention. Wouldn't that be news? But I got to tell y'all, it baffles me that we are camped out in this Biden age, campfire when Trump is the maniac out there calling Nancy Pelosi by one of his opponent's names. He's these rants, I know we don't listen as much as we used to him because now the media has finally learned that the man is a carnival, barker and a carnival act himself. But he's saying just the most outrageous things and frankly, the most dangerous things that could be coming out of a former president of the United States and certainly someone who hopes to be president of the United States again. This is what I hope. I hope that all of us sit down and take a very, very, very serious look at. They're both old. Let's take that out the recipe.
Yeah.
We got two choices. Option A, option B. Actually, option A and option Z.
Right.
If you want to be close to the highest of the alphabet, to heaven, stay with the A's, Andrew. Biden, we up in the, hang out with us.
Angela.
No shade.
No, Cross.
I'm just saying.
Angela.
She
Andrew.
said taking Cross for that.
Yes.
Listen.
Hey,
all
so
I'm
the one, go ahead. Uh-huh.
No, I just in short, we have to mature ourselves in this electoral process. That when you have two candidates, it's not about the perfect. The perfect can be the enemy of the good. And in this case, we have a good option in Joe Biden. And we've got the most experienced of the candidates out there and somebody who's not going to, quite frankly, launch us into, according to Donald Trump, World War II, but he missed that part of history. Donald Trump would launch us into World War III or certainly allow, sycophants of Vladimir Putin to take, to have their way. And he said as much. All I'm saying is age needs to be relegated to its proper place. And in my opinion, it ain't nothing but a number.
Can I say something about that number? A nine ain't nothing but a thing.
I want to
say something about that, Andrew, because one, I think we have to acknowledge this is about Vice President Kamala Harris. People are saying we cannot have her a pulse away from the presidency because people are intimidated by the leadership of Black women and they would rather see this country turn to ashes before they see somebody who looks like me run it. And that's a really unfortunate mentality. But I think to your point, Andrew, what you're referencing is Donald Trump talked about countries who are not paying their fair share into NATO, he would not protect. This is a huge, for folks who don't know what NATO is, it is the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. It's an agreement established after World War II. It's hugely important. And for him to say, we will no longer protect you, that was a huge deal 10 years ago when he said this. And now the Republican Party is falling in line saying, yep, we agree with that. When he says, listen, Vladimir Putin, you can do what you want when I'm in office because I'm going to leave those countries out in the open for you to annex, for you to do whatever you like. I cannot stress what an existential threat that is to the globe, not just domestic policies, but to the globe. I'm kind of over Trump and all of it.
Listen, I feel you. And the only reason why, as you all know, I mean, I don't have to convince you, but certainly for our listeners who we're so thankful for, it's important, as asinine as it feels, having to reflect on Donald Trump's comments, what he's saying, what he's not saying, who he's meeting with, and how he's campaigning. We have learned this much. This man says the quiet part out loud. He means what he says, and we ought to take him at his word so we don't find ourselves over the creek, over the barrel, let me just go here. Let's hear how the president's own administration is now responding to these new claims around Biden's age and fitness and so on and so forth.
They ain't that new, but the report is newer.
Right.
The report is, and unfortunately, Angela, the reason we're talking about it is because you've got now Democrats who are co-signing these kinds of comments for either an alternate agenda or they really believe it. Yep. Let's hear from Press Secretary Jean-Pierre.
Look, I got this question last week as well, and I'm just going to say what Dr. O'Connor, it's kind of what he said to me about a year ago when the report came out last year, obviously on his physical, which is the president proves every day how he operates, how he thinks, right? But by dealing with world leaders, by making really difficult decisions on behalf of the American people, whether it's domestic, whether it's national security. And so he shows it every day on how he thinks, how he operates. And so that is how the Dr. O'Connor sees it, and that's how I'm going to leave it.
Well, the press secretary took a very polite approach to addressing this question. And what I meant by we've got to mature ourselves as we approach elections, what I mean is, while your local mayor, school board member, and commissioner might be relied on to be at the city festival and cut ribbons and do those kinds of things, those are just not my expectations anymore for a president of the United States. I want them to know what they're talking about. I want them to be steeped in public policy. I want them to have a heart for people and to be clear in their compass around why it is every single day they choose to get up and do the hardest job on earth, so far as I know.
See, now we down a different road, and I'm just going to say that this is exactly the problem. This is why people are starting to see a closing gap between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. There does seem to be a callous side of Joe Biden that's popping up. Look at the response to Israel and Gaza. I mean,
well, that's public policy. I'm talking about ribbon cutting.
No, I'm not. I'm never talking about ribbon cutting. Okay. I don't need you to cut no ribbon. I need you to show up for black people the way they showed up for you in South Carolina. I need you to show up for these kids who are dying every single day. I need you to show up in our wages. I need you to show up. There's all this talk about Donald Trump and the stimmies. Joe Biden didn't want to sign the stimmies. Show up on that. Show up when black people need relief. Don't just claim credit for the black businesses that were started under your administration. Show up and give them some additional relief, some additional access to government contracts, some additional access to party contracts, some ad buys. I can keep going. Yeah. No, I'm saying at the end of the day, I don't feel like he is demonstrating that he's different. He's not a fascist. But your response to what is happening in Gaza is callous. Your response to what is happening at the border is callous. That is not okay. You have to draw a wider gap between you and evil. Yeah. And it used to be that this big tent party put people first. Yeah. That is the way that it must be. I'm sorry. I am not gung-ho Biden right now. What I was most excited about was Kamala telling the Wall Street Journal last week that she was ready to serve, and there was no question about that. Yeah. That's what I'm most in response to his age. And I'm just saying, like, I don't want us to get to the point where we start being like, well, he's such a good man. And like, I want him to be a good man on policy. I don't need him to show up and know my name and pat me on the back. I want to see it in the policy. I'm sorry, I don't see it right now.
Well, you brought up, sorry.
Cosign, but I just got to say this much, which is, I would rank him as among the most accomplished Democratic presidents in the history of the. Now, he ain't boastful like we have seen in the past. He can't play no saxophone. There were a lot of, just kind of old white men. I'm just saying, a lot of old man, white old man tactics, sort of the vibes that you get from him. But I can't tell y'all enough what that stimulus package did for everyday Americans.
Yeah, I agree
that it went away, but we never had that before. It didn't exist under a different administration. The closest we ever had before was Roosevelt. And quite frankly, from student aid, loan forgiveness to the incentivized programs that exist at the federal level for freaking first-time home ownership and on and on and on, child care, the way in which they have dealt with the American people.
Agreed.
So
but
all
we're
I'm saying
watching kids. You're talking about a child tax credit, but we're watching people over like across. Kids are dying. Like you don't get a child tax credit if your kid's dead. Yeah. Like we just can't. We can't implement policy this way.
We agree, Angela. But for you and everyone else out there, two things can be true at once. He can be wrong in his approach with regards to Israel and what's happening to the Palestinian people who deserve their own state, and how dare Benjamin Netanyahu step back from that.
They deserve to live.
True, just at the same time as his emphasis on trying to make sure that the American people can not just live and survive, but they can thrive. And I believe that work is in his heart. I've seen it exhibited in public policy. Now we just need those public policy positions renewed. And he's got to get at it with a more vigorous fight, both him and the vice president and Democrats on the Hill, to deliver, not just talk about it, but be about it.
Yeah.
I will shout them out on the unemployment rate, too. The black unemployment rate is the lowest it's been in history. I acknowledge where I've seen growth, but I'm just telling you the other things are so...
It's blinding.
Shocking.
They can be blinding.
I just,
absolutely.
Tiff, I didn't cut you off 5 times. I'm sorry.
No,
Tiff.
I'm about to cut all of us off because we have gone over the time.
Just let her say her point. Let her say her point.
I was just going to say you brought up immigration, and that was a big deal in the special election here in New York. And I know we wanted to talk about that.
No, Tiffany, you're right on it. Thank you for taking us where we want to go, which is to hear from our viewers, which I hope you noticed. In the past couple of episodes, we've been trying to make sure that your voice is not at the end, but is all throughout this podcast. We wouldn't be here without you, and we also wouldn't be here without the sponsor. So we're going to take a quick break and be right back. All right, we're back. So we promised you that that viewer question. Let's hear it.
My name is Tanisha Lyons Porter. I live in Los Angeles, California, View Park, Windsor Hills, to be exact. I have a question. So it is election time, local elections, propositions, all of that stuff. How do you all do your due diligence to research the judges and the board members and the propositions? Because California, I don't know about other states, but it'd be confusing. And our family used to do it as a group. But my dad passed away a few years ago. My mom is gone. And we still want to do it as a group, but it's overwhelming. So how do you all do your due diligence and research for your local elections?
That's a perfect question. And a good transition from talking about the presidential, now the congressional. Look, folks want to talk about state and local. How do y'all make your decisions? What do you do when you're vetting a candidate or a policy position that may be on the ballot? Tiffany, why don't you let us know?
Yeah, well, first I want to say how much I love this question, Andrew, and I'm actually really interested in your response because you've run at a local level and a state level, which is different than running at a federal level.
Sure.
And I think, understanding who's responsible for what is so integral to our civic engagement in the process. For me, I first want to make sure I understand the exact issue, because the interesting thing about this question, asking at state and local level, this is where voting blocks can fracture. That's why I don't like terms like the Black vote or the Latino vote, because some of these down ballot initiatives, there are things about, how budgets are operated or, where or how budgets are allocated, I should say. So I try to look at it and make sure I'm getting material and information from the source directly. All of these candidates have a website. You can go there and look and see how they feel about something. For people who are curious about this, you'd be surprised if you're somebody and somebody's running for a state rep. If you can get 20 or 30 of your friends at your house and you say, hey, we would like to invite you to my home to hear exactly how you feel, reach out to them, because that is precisely what they need. They will show up at your home and answer questions and engage with you. But make sure you're informed. I will say, do not go off political ads. Political ads are meant to do exactly that, sway your opinion, and it might not be accurate. It's meant to sway the person's opinion to their liking. And sometimes people don't even know that some of these ads are funded by extremists or right-wing organizations. During the Super Bowl, you see a lot of religious ads. And when you start digging to say, who's paying for this We Love Jesus ad? It is somebody who does not live their life according to the principles of a good book, I can assure you. So I would say go to the source and don't be afraid to reach out to candidates directly and see where your values align.
I love that. What about you, Angela?
Well, one of the things that I still very much do, my parents and I fill out our ballots together in Washington State, and I love doing that because it turns into a little debate, and I think that you guys can see that I didn't fall far from that. So we've been doing that since I was a little kid, and I couldn't vote, and I wanted to.
Love you, Papa Rai.
I definitely understand what she's saying about wanting to do that as a family. And we will sit there and pull up the positions, as Tiff is talking about, that voter booklet that comes out with their positions, look them up, fact check them, see if any of your homies endorse them. And if they're in there, like you can look at it that way. But I think this question is great because sometimes voting day is not just that, second Tuesday in November. There are also elections throughout the year. There are primaries and there are special elections, of which there was just one. Andrew, tell us about that. There's just the other day election in New York.
Well, I'm sick of them. But the Democrats did win that race. I want to speak, though, Angela, if I could, to the question. I believe it was Tanisha from L.A., and just say this communal aspect of voting that has been so deeply, I think, sort of stitched into our community and our culture. We've got to maintain that, because what the opposition wants to do is make this thing seem complicated, overly intellectual, and frankly, not accessible for everyday people. And why is it that they don't want it accessible for everyday people? Because they don't want you holding them accountable like that. They want you to listen to, as Tiffany said, those ads, which may not be backed by them. And even the ones backed by them are usually portraying what it is that they want you to believe about them. Could be true, could be not, could be, frankly, a little bit of both. So the communal aspect breaks down, I think, one of the most significant barriers to entry, which is the shit is too complicated. And it's, I would rather check out.
Yeah.
and deal with what I got to deal with rather than go and try and understand and learn about that. And so I would just recommend, keep that communal aspect up in addition to what my colleagues have just said. Beautiful question. And we want y'all to, of course, keep the questions and comments coming. We want to, of course, invite you to download, rate, and also give feedback to the podcast because, as you know, we listen and we put it right here weekly in front of you. Y'all, we're going to transition real quick to politics is what?
Everywhere.
I need some excitement. Politics are what?
Everywhere.
A little delayed, Angela. A little delayed.
Oh, I'm delayed again?
No.
No, I'm
He's
messing
being
with
silly.
you. I'm messing with you.
Okay.
Politics are everywhere. I have to tell you, ladies, this is probably one of my more favorite parts of the podcast where we get to, I don't know, traffic in things that we may or may not be expert. Tiffany.
I'm a sports expert, and how dare you? Anyway,
Who won the Super Bowl, Tiff?
the Chiefs won the Super Bowl. And just for those who don't know, Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce both play for the Chiefs, and they're on the same team.
Bless it.
Good job, Tiff.
Thank you.
Did they come for you? Did they come for you, friend?
Well,
A little bit.
a little bit. It's fine.
They really dragged us more for talking about Travis Kelce saying he didn't like.
Oh, the
we knew that
fame.
he
We
didn't.
knew he didn't say
I was
that.
like, we knew that.
But you
Like,
know,
we
Angela,
played that's how you know they don't listen to the show.
that's what I'm saying. Don't watch clips and think that's the whole thing. Don't read headlines
That
and
gets on
think that's
my
the whole story.
nerves.
Listen to the entire podcast. There's some good stuff in there. You might learn something. Stop being
Yeah, I
Twitter
might learn
fingers
something.
and listen before you weigh in. Because it takes
Lord,
every day. I be wanting to
think,
fight some of these comments, but I don't.
I did the other day. I broke the
saw.
rule,
Thank
Andrew.
you.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
So when Angela refers to breaking the rule, I just think, you know what, your opinion to me is really your business. And
Yeah, I'm with that.
yeah, I'll
I
leave
don't
it
want
there.
you down in the show off of misinformation. You know, I'm quick to check an alternative fact.
Well, what is the politics are everywhere?
Well, y'all tell me, where is it today?
Well, so something that I found interesting is it's been a lot of drama in the world of comedy.
Yeah?
From Club
Say
Shay
more?
Shay to people, throwing hooks
Yeah.
back and forth. And so that's been really interesting to watch because obviously I'm not a comedian. I'm just naturally funny.
Are you sure you're not a comedian? But because
I'm just naturally
beg
funny.
to differ.
I think
You're
I
just-
could get on stage and riff. I really do. No diss to all my comedian friends. I think
hey,
I could.
Tiffany,
Yes.
so long as you
I
don't
think
riff
I'd get
like
booed.
my boy comedian David Lucas.
Okay, I honestly,
So
I don't like
Why
it.
you call him your boy? Don't call him your
no,
boy.
listen. I said, I'm a
Maybe you
affectionate
welcoming
person.
everybody home. Let me let you have your.
I think that's what we do here. I think we have grace. We are a
It feels
show
up to me
with
the locks
grace.
are changed for this dude. I don't
So
even want
then
to say
let's
his
talk
name.
about it though. Let's
tell
hear
people
from
who is
comedian
David Lucas, yeah.
David Lucas, who is a comedian, pretty popular amongst his audience.
I don't think he's
ain't
popular.
He's up
Is he?
and
I've
coming.
never heard. Honestly, I don't think he's popular. I've
Never
never
heard
heard
this
of
man.
him.
Let's describe
This
him
the
as
most
he
shine
is.
he about
He's
to get ever in life.
Yeah.
The first and last time we ever gonna talk
He didn't
about
have a
you.
huge following.
up
He
and
was grossly
coming.
unheard of, mostly.
Up and coming comedian. All right, we make space for all.
He's up and gone.
Who took it, some say, a little too far when
Way.
he joked about the unfortunate and untimely passing, the murderer of George Floyd, which really spurred a reaction from the audience. Y'all take a look and tell me what you think.
And all these fucking good ass white people at my show. And you wanted to show them the reason George Floyd got his neck nailed on. Don't ooh at that joke. It's just a joke, man. I would have never kneeled on George Floyd's neck. I would have shot that nigga. That was... It's called comedy. You really stoop low to put the outfit on. You look like you drive a yellow taxi cab. You offended too? God damn, man. Y'all good? Or y'all about to... I like Kyle Rittenhouse too.
For those of you who are listening and not watching, you missed audience members getting up, walking out, shouting back and forth
He's a sick
Y'all remember when
bastard.
comedy was like funny? This guy's like low brow. I mean,
I am sick from this clip. I am sick.
There's just no comedy there.
It's
Y'all,
nothing
I
funny.
guess.
Well,
one
who
of
was
the-
laughing? I want to know who was even
That's
laughing.
the
You
scary
heard the people
part.
laugh. That's sick.
And
It's
sometimes
sick.
when people outside of the community hear somebody in the community say that, they mistakenly think this is an appropriate joke, and there was
but
nothing funny
there's
about
also
that.
there's also the nervous laugh.
I didn't hear nervous
realize
laughter.
that
I
you're-
heard laughter, and I didn't find that funny. And I would say Angela and I disagreed. I didn't want to even play the clip at all.
She did.
Well, because it gives a highlight. I think it's disrespectful to the Floyd family to
So
have to hear that. I think it's disrespectful
Yeah.
to all of us who remember that moment so keenly. And I think the key to comedy is it has to be funny. And what this man lacks in humor, he makes up for in controversy, and he will find that actually is not talent. And so I think he's already gotten too much airtime on Native Land Pod, in my personal opinion.
Well, I just think, part of this is, there are two questions for me. One, we've just seen after the Super Bowl, Kanye sort of, put himself back out there a little bit. Maybe he has a deal, possibly a redeal underway. But really, speaking up and talking a little bit more about his mental health, making bad statements and actions all along the way, but who among us hasn't? And I just wonder, what is the road to like recovery once you do something so foolish? Now, I don't even know if this guy, the comedian, recognizes the harm of his ways. You all are right to focus first on the family, which is, it's got to be harmful to them. But if we were to carry this, a little step further, I'm just wondering, how do people start to rehabilitate themselves and become part of frankly acceptable audience? And then two, for me, and this is probably even bigger than the first, and it is, have we really learned anything from the summer of our awakening, where we thought folks, regardless of their color, where they live, what neighborhood, where they grew up, were starting to understand, at least appreciate the plight of Black folks, Black men particularly, but Black
Right.
folks in this country as it relates to criminal justice? Did we learn a lesson?
But this is the thing, right? So Tiff talked about how we disagreed about whether or not to play the clip. I wanted to play the clip because I think there are more people who hold that sentiment than not. And what it's reflected in is, to this very point around 2020. Do you know since 2020, there have been $340 billion committed by Fortune 1000 companies towards racial justice efforts? So if they're laughing in this comedy club, and we cannot account for what was initially $66 billion, now has turned to $340 billion, then the joke is on us. The joke is on us as Black consumers. Our buying power is near $1.3 trillion. The fact that you can continue to say, I'm committing this, I'm gonna push this money towards efforts that protect your safety and ensure your livelihood and your viability and equity in this country. But I am going to, as soon as the Supreme Court says no affirmative action in higher education college admissions, now I'm going to retract everything that I did. Racial reckoning no more. We shall overcome. Hell, we done overcame enough. Y'all have what you need. I'm pulling all of this back. All of my DEI team, Meta, Google, Amazon, Twitter, and everywhere else, including Paramount, that just laid off a lot of people just the other day, most of them Black folks. All of that is dissipated because you can't handle a little pressure. You can't get creative for the people that helped you to build this joint.
Yeah.
Like, I have so many issues with this. 55% increase in DEI positions after George Floyd's death. We are 40% of the attrition rate of the layoffs in those roles. That is the joke on us.
Well,
The people laughing in that comedy club are probably in hiring positions, are probably in decision-making positions, and saying they're going to do one thing, but really doing another.
Yeah, I
I'm
mean,
off my
they
rails.
may
That's real.
not be, even if they're not in hiring positions, they're certainly in safe positions. Like, their jobs are not often
Yeah, how
at
about
risk
that?
at ours. But I think you bring up a good point, Angela, about all the commitments we heard. I think this would be a great thing for Congress to take up. Like, call back from some of these people and say, hey, remember that money you said you commit to racial justice? What happened with that? Because what it became was a marketing tool. It became a marketing slogan, racial reckoning, and not actually a policy standpoint or a real commitment by the private sector. Just since
The CDC,
December.
by the way, TIFF has done that. They're just not in the majority.
Right,
but
exactly.
They have done that.
I think that's a really good point. But just I want our viewers to understand, just since December of 2023, 33% of jobs that were hired to promote racial equity in DEI positions have been lost. That's just since December. This is in the past 3 months. Moreover, more than 20 states have either banned or plan to ban DEI initiatives in their states. Why is all this happening? Because of right-wing MAGA extremists. And so when a lot of you guys, a lot of our viewers, and thank you for weighing in and reaching out with your questions, a lot of our viewers have asked us to weigh in on the Future Fund, which was a fund dedicated to funding Black, it was a venture capital fund dedicated to funding Black-owned businesses. And so this is something, the sad part of all of this, the gentleman going after this, Ed Bloom, he's a right-wing extremist this is the same person who went after affirmative action and to his credit, got it all the way to the Supreme Court. So he's doing exactly what he said he would do. But I want people to understand that when Black folks win, it does not mean that other people lose. Actually, everyone wins. There was a study that came out in 2016 that found that most venture capitalist funders are white men. And so there is less than 0.1% of people, or 0.3% rather, of people of color who are in a position to fund these. Because of that number, the narrow amount of people who do get funding has cost the U.S. to lose out over 1.1 million minority-owned businesses and forfeit more than 9 million job opportunities. Black-owned businesses does not mean we only employ Black people. It contributes to the economy, and everybody wins. So while you're cutting your nose off to spite your face, you are literally denying yourself and your children opportunity because you cannot stomach equality in this country. You don't believe in yourself enough to have a level playing field. And that's why your efforts are constantly trying to keep us demoted. And our outlook is watch me leapfrog all over you and still win. A free people will never be suppressed for any longer time than history would deny us.
Well, listen, y'all both have dropped some bars on this one, and I could not agree more. I'm hopeful, y'all, and I don't know if you have an optimistic outlook around what this can actually become if we leaned into the moment and held people accountable. But it seems to me that for corporate America, this was very much so performative. A lot of what was done, even the funds that were established, the symbolic contributions that were given to Black-led organizations, the NAACP, the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, and on and on and on and on. Black Lives Matter, you name it. If it had Black in it, it was getting flow. The problem is that if you went back and checked with those organizations right now, I bet many of them would be sad, but would truthfully report that a lot of those donors have gone away. How do you sustain a movement?
Yeah.
How do you change community and society if you're a one-time giver, a performative actor who doesn't show up for the march, the putting stamps on envelopes in the office, the call time or text time in order to achieve the gains that we're trying to still claw back?
Yeah.
It takes more than just a game, an incident, a march, a petition, a visit to Congress, or your local city hall. It requires more than that. If that's what you give, then don't be surprised by what you get.
Yeah.
But if you put real energy, real effort, real organizing, real concentrated momentum and constituency building amongst your family, then your friends and your church members or your sit on the couch members or whoever you play spades with.
We shouldn't have to do all that for equity. We shouldn't have to.
All I'm saying is unfortunately, we live in the world that we live in. Yeah. And when we fail to do those things, people tend to contract, to pull back from their commitments, and we want to hold them accountable. Yeah. But listen, y'all, I don't want to leave this politics everywhere without going to a special place for you, Tiffany.
I'm ready.
You've got a love relationship, I understand, with All-Star Weekend. Can you just enlighten the people on your fascination?
Oh, Andrew, I'm sorry. Before we move on, I just want to say I misspoke. I said the Future Fund, and it is actually the Fearless Fund. So I want to shout out those fearless Black women who are still out there fighting the good fight.
By the way, led by a rattler.
That's right. Shout out to
Rattler.
FAMU. Shout out to FAMU. So apologies, the
Shout out to
Fearless
Fam.
Fund, not the Future Fund, but we appreciate you being fearless about our future. So thank you.
Hey, well,
Yes.
Tiffany, you can interrupt our commercial breaks anytime when you want to talk about a rattler and fearless funding for Black and minority women, Black women-led businesses too. Okay, y'all. We'll be right back after this bill-paying segment. All right, y'all. So, Tiff, we have waited with bated breath long enough. What's up with this All-Star Weekend going on this weekend?
I just want to say, because, these are back-to-back events that happen. We have the Super Bowl, which I think has a different crowd than All-Star. I don't know if y'all remember when All-Star was in Atlanta. I think collectively as a society, we were like, this is never happening again. Like, it
All
was
the single
so
women?
much. Don't even be trying to put all the single women. It was just so much foolishness that happened. I mean, the airlines to everything. So this year, All-Star is in Indianapolis, but every All-Star season, because as you all are well aware, I'm very sought after for my athletic opinions on sports and whatnot. I'm not going to weigh in on All-Star here, but I just say it is one of the...
Fact check us on this, Lolo. Fact check us.
Fine. I will just say I have a comment and a question. My question is, I don't quite understand who is playing at All-Star. Like, who are the teams that play? So I'm asking that for our audience who might not understand. Obviously, I
might
know,
not know.
but you guys weigh in. And it's just one of the most beautiful experiences because I'm always reminded of 1983 when Marvin Gaye sang one of the most beautiful renditions of the national
When you were
anthem.
5,
I
yeah.
was just I wasn't born yet. Anyway, I was just a
We
wee
just
bit.
celebrated your
I was just a
45th, girl.
wee bit. But
Are we going to get to hear Marvin?
can we? I would
And then we
like
can
to
talk
play
about
one
the
little clip of him singing if we can.
They gonna let us hear it?
Yeah, we got to. He took his time with it. Let us, Nick. Can you roll that Marvin Gaye clip, Nick?
Love it.
Woo!
Love it,
I mean,
love
that
it,
boy
love
is sweet
it.
with it. He took his
Love
time.
it.
And so for those who don't know, the next best rendition, I think people would argue, is Whitney Houston. When she sang at the Super Bowl, it was just beautiful. I've never heard another person be able to command that song the way she did. She actually said Marvin Gaye's version of singing the national anthem was her inspiration because he really took his time with it. But you look at that scene with his aviator glasses on and as smooth as he looks,
black.
it's just a beautiful moment in this Black History Month that I just wanted us to shout out.
I love it.
Now, Angela or
I will
Andrew, who
tell
want to
you.
tell me or tell our
Angela?
audience about who's playing in this game?
Yes. So I really want to just say first that I almost forgot it was the national anthem, which I hate so much that Marvin Gaye was singing. That I just want to be honest about it. I don't like it. Then check out that second and third stanza if you're confused about why. Anyway, so the All-Star Weekend, Tiff, includes several activities. There is the dunk contest, there's the three-point contest, and there are not teams in the traditional sense of the NBA who are playing. It's the Eastern Conference versus the Western Conference teams that play against each other. And folks, it because this is politics is everywhere, it's a great time to remind folks that people actually vote on who they want to play
What people?
on those teams.
For our audience, of course. What people
You,
vote?
Tiff, I know
I can
you
vote.
voted.
Of course
Because
I
you're never
voted.
going to suppress your own vote.
I'm going to vote.
Okay.
And they have to be currently in the NBA to play.
Yes,
Okay.
you cannot be retired.
love
You can't be an
this. I love
aspiring
this
basketball
tutorial.
player. Spud Webb, also known as Tiffany Cross, or Muggsy Bogues, also known as Tiffany Cross. You cannot play. But I do want to shout out Boo Thing because Jalen will be coaching the Rising Stars. In the Rising Stars tournament, there are 4 teams that are selected to play in the Rising Stars tournament. And he's also getting the Bob Lanier Community Assist Award at the NBA Legends brunch on Sunday. So shout out to Jalen. Yes,
Does he,
Nice.
Angela,
deserved.
how do I, if he needs like an
Nice.
assistant coach or somebody on the sideline, like how do I, should I text him or should I, like how can I offer my services to support him?
You know what? He told me to ask you this too. Can you draw up a play really quick that you would have
I will.
them run?
I'll DM it. I'll
Okay.
DM it. Stand by after the show.
Can you show it to me on your
Oh,
notes?
God,
no,
help
no,
us.
we can't do it. We can't do it in real time. Okay,
I need
no.
to think it through, and I'll get it to
Okay.
you after the show.
Yeah, do that.
Stand by, Jalen. It's coming your way. Congratulations, Jalen, on the award, the honor, coaching. I will be tuned in. Can we see that?
What
Are they
have
going
we
to show that
done?
part, Angela, the rising
have we
star?
done?
No, but you know what? I'll try to FaceTime you when
Thank
it's,
you.
when it's happening.
Thank
I
you.
don't think I don't know why they don't show that, but I'll make sure. Shout out to JRLA. Part of the reason why he's getting this award is Jalen founded a school, Jalen Rose Leadership Academy.
Awesome.
You enter a learner and exit a leader. That's not even an
Aw.
ad. It's
Get
just
it.
I love
showing
that.
it to the kids.
Love it.
Shout out to Detroit. What up, though?
What
Hey,
up,
Jalen,
though?
congratulations. We're wishing you well. Tiffany, are you going to make it to the
I'm not going to All-Star
Okay.
because I don't want
What about you,
everybody
Angela?
talking to me every 5 minutes, asking my opinion on the game and who I thought they should have voted for to
'Cause that's
play.
Yes, because
It's
you're an
exhausting.
analyst. Yeah,
I get
you're
tired
an
of people always
analyst.
getting my opinion on sports, so no, I'm not going. Angela, while you're in Indianapolis, let us know if there's any like political things happening there that we should pay attention to. If there's any like ballot initiatives, and tell the people, everybody you talk to at All-Star, please tell them, submit your questions to Native Land Pod because we want to get questions from the people. So you'll be our Native Land ambassador on the ground
Yeah.
at All-Star. If you see Angela at All-Star, stop her and say, I got a question, and she'll videotape it and we'll use it on the podcast.
Oh, and now I went from being the ambassador to being the digital media support.
Yes.
Got it. I'm happy to do that. But you know what? Speaking of the Midwest,
Yes.
Andrew, there are some things happening in the Midwest that we should be paying
Yes.
close attention to.
That's
As you know, the
what I
Republicans all over
heard.
the country are like hell-bent because they're so pro-life. They got another thing happening. What's going on in Missouri, Andrew Gillum?
Well, this is why we have to pay attention. I appreciate, Tiff, you deputizing Angela, to basically be the correspondent
job.
on the ground. But in truth, this is where the rubber meets the road, y'all.
Yeah.
At the state and the local, we can talk about, the purple, red man and age and all that stuff all we want to. But when it comes to your quality of life, I bet you are watching that school board. I bet you're
Red
paying
Man is
attention to
Trump.
what
I was
gets
thinking about
closed.
Red
Yeah,
Man
I
and Method
didn't know.
Man. I was confused. I was like, wait.
But these
my-
policies are like a huge deal. And
at the state level, I think a lot of times these things slip in and go past before we ever notice them. And the next thing we know, we sit in the doctor's office and they're talking to us about, letting this senator come sit in on my debrief because that's
Well,
essentially what this is. Let me tell you,
Yeah.
Angela.
So Senator Mary Elizabeth Coleman, who is a Republican in the Missouri state legislature, introduced a bill that would prohibit Planned Parenthood from getting state funds. You know that this has been an age-old thing they do over and over again. The Democrats, and this is where I think it's so important because there are well-meaning elected officials. It's why you need to pay attention and vote in your state and local races. There's some Democrats that were like, not on my watch. And they pushed back and they said, fine, if you're going to have us vote on this bill, we're going to have you do some roll call votes on some things. I think before we get into any more about this bill and this rape and incest exception, we should roll sound.
You took away the rights. Yes, you did. You took away the rights of rape victims to have a choice to be able to decide. All those other items that were mentioned here, a lot of those were women that decided to have that. We're not saying that we're forcing an abortion. We're saying give them the choice. You should have a 12-year-old just on health reasons alone should have that choice. But you're okay with that. But you're okay with that, Senator, a forced birth of a raped 12-year-old.
I'm not okay with inflicting abortions on kids.
It's the law of Missouri that you voted for. It's the law of Missouri you voted for.
First of all, I appreciated the argument, but where are the women? They got women in the Senate?
I
know who the sponsor is. I'm just saying, it's always interesting to me when you see on these abortion bills, and it happens in my state of Florida all the time. You spend a moment watching the legislature, and it's men intensely going in on the debate floor over a woman's right to her own reproductive decision making.
There's a woman that actually called for the roll call vote on the rape and incest exception. Again, shout out to the folks who are holding it down. When you're trying to protect the lives of people, the livelihood of these young folks. He mentioned a 12-year-old, and they can't find it in their hearts to say, you know what, this is a total ban would go too far. This is about Planned Parenthood. And a Planned Parenthood bill, Planned Parenthood does so much more than abortion, but to feed their messaging framework.
Yeah.
They will defund Planned Parenthood.
Yeah.
It's insane.
Well, I want to just quickly pick up your point, Andrew, that women make up half of society. We do not make up half of the elected representatives. And I think that is showing in policies like this. This is why I think this is so important, because I'll say it every week. The state and local level is where policies are created and they bubble up to the federal level. And this is a great example of this. 64 100,000 pregnancies have happened from rape in the United States that has been since Roe v. Wade was overturned by the Supreme Court. When you think about where Black folks live, more than 60% of those who seek an abortion are people of color. And when you think about where Black folks reside, a majority of us live in southern states. That is that Bible Belt, quote unquote, where a lot of abortion bans have been enacted. So this is something that disproportionately impacts us and that we have to think about. I never address these people or call them pro-life. They perhaps may be pro-fetus. They are not pro-life. You cannot be pro-life and pro-guns. You cannot be pro-life and, in my opinion, pro-Trump. You cannot be pro-life and support what's happening at the southern border with a razor wire where desperate migrants are swimming with their children and you are okay with them drowning. Nothing about that says pro-life to me. This abortion ban has always been about control. And it's sad. Power. It is really sad that there are so many women who, particularly white women, to be honest, who vote in favor of these oppressive draconian policies that have a direct, sad impact on the majority of Black women. And I don't know what's going to happen, but you think about folks in Mississippi who lack access to this kind of care. When you look at some of these states that's enacting this, look at some of their education levels. Look at how well they take care of their children. Not very well. So if you don't care about children, but you care about fetuses, you are a hypocrite.
There it is. And this is one of the reasons why it's really important that we lean into our local and state politics.
I love that question.
The point that Tiffany and Angela made about states and locals being the laboratories, it really visualize when you think about lab rats, the people who we experiment with to see who lives, who gets cured. Many of the policies that are, of course, attacking women, but up and down across the spectrum of issues, many of those policies see the first light of day at a local or a state rulemaking or lawmaking set of hearings and practices, and then are obviously inculcated into the law. And unfortunately, before we look up and we know what's going on, you're down at your mayor's office asking for a Social Security check when that's not our jurisdiction. But you failed to come and talk to me when we were being sued by the NRA about guns in city parks, where our kids play and our families picnic. These are the kinds of issues that are getting adopted at these levels. And so for our Native Land podcast, listeners, we got to activate. And in places, sometimes you don't wait for the invitation to run. You decide that you're going to pull up a seat to the table yourself and you'll get out there and you'll challenge the people who are standing in the way of your livelihood, your family safety and security, and your ability to prosper as a community. Y'all, we're going to wrap this session by hearing from another listener around some of the questions they have around how it is they can organize better where they live.
Hey guys, my name is Matt Davis. I'm from Des Moines, Iowa. And so the question I had for you guys is, a lot of times, like, I know when they've interviewed Charlemagne the God, I've even seen other interviews, even with Angela and others, where they said that Democrats are losing the Black voter. And so I was really curious, some have said that's because during Trump's presidency, he was cutting checks. Others just say it's policies that they're not seeing that are impacting their daily lives. So my question is, if you were to choose 3 things that were attainable, what 3 things would you choose that could be done and implemented that would bring more Black voters back to the Democratic Party? And what do you think those would be?
I'm going to kick this over to you, Tiffany, but did want to say that there's a couple of...
He called my name, so I just want to defend myself, by the way. But go ahead, keep going.
No, you can get it done, Frank. Go.
So just quickly, I want to be clear about the fact that I have never been on any show at any time saying that Black people are leaving the Democratic Party for the Republican Party. That has never happened. I do worry about the number of Black men in particular. I still think that is a small number. That have at least entertained the idea of voting for Donald Trump. There is nothing wrong with Black people requiring that a party that they've been so loyal to has an agenda that also serves them. To that point, he asked for 3 things. I'll give you 3 things. Reparations, police reform, and an equitable agenda that includes stronger reforms in affirmative action spaces.
And I just want to say that Alicia Garza, as Angela often points out, has a wonderful Black agenda, so I would direct anyone there. But I want to thank this viewer, first of all, for weighing in and sending in your viewer question and even name-checking Angela. So we, even if it may not have been the most accurate, but we super appreciate your question, and thank you for that. I do kind of take issue with the premise of the question. There are not droves of Black voters leaving the Democratic Party. For whatever reason, that is a talking point every election cycle. What I would love for the media to talk about is what white folks are doing. I've said this plenty of times. What are conservative white, not even just conservative, but talk about the conservative white folks, the number of people, the 75 million plus people who are still willing to vote for Donald Trump, despite this long list of things I can name. Talk to, there's a fracture within the Latino community among Latino men who are venturing over to the Republican Party because of conservative policies in much larger numbers than Black people. Black people have upheld the Democratic Party at disproportionate rates other than any other community of color. So I kind of take an issue with this when we try to suggest the failure of this democracy, or if there's a slight decrease in voter turnout, the first thing people want to do is say Black folks, Black folks, Black folks.
Right.
I am not for it. I will always constantly kick it back to the white folks are still the largest voting bloc in this country. What are you doing?
And his name is Matt Davis.
Thank you, Matt Davis, for sending us your question.
Thank you for the question. And of course, it's an invitation to invite all of you to submit your questions, your comments. You could take issue with something that we said. You can disagree or you can agree. And we'll do our very best to make sure that we put it up here if there's a learning, teachable moment for folks. I just wanted to quickly say to Matt, I appreciate obviously the comments of my colleagues and also your question. And just say, I think if we put as much attention into meeting the needs of this core constituency as we put into turning this constituency out during an election, I think it would start to feel more like a respectful, democratic relationship where my needs are being met, but your needs are being met also. And so you don't have to come up with a crazy ad buy to convince me of all the things that are so great that you're doing, because I would have experienced it. I would have championed it. I would have been invited into the conversation because I was treated like a, important voter. All right, y'all. You got one more segment with us. Come right back after this commercial break. It's worth it. Okay, y'all, we're back, and the teaser was real. It is worth you sticking around for, and you'll see why in a few moments. Tiff, Angela, what are your calls to action? I guess I should ask Andrew. What are your calls to actions? Y'all want me to go first?
Yes, you go first.
Yeah, you don't want me last. Y'all, one thing. Go and take your child, your nephew, you ain't got your niece, you ain't got none of them, maybe your neighbor or your elderly neighbor's grandchildren. Y'all take them outside to play. I'm so sick of my kids being addicted to these darn devices. I have to force them outside. There was a time when I was a kid, you couldn't get me indoors because we were outside playing so much. I know it's a little bit of throwback, maybe old fashioned. But adults, let's lean in and teach these young kids what it means to go out and be inventive, creative, create games when you ain't got no supplies except a rock to carve into the street pavement. I'm just saying, take them outside, y'all. What you got, Tiff?
I like that. First, I want to punctuate that. You know, I'm big on stay off your devices. I promise I cannot. When I'm with somebody and they're like this the whole time talking to me, I don't want to talk to them. Our time becomes a lot more limited. My call to action is a bit different.
It's okay.
Yeah.
You ain't got 3 kids.
That's true. That is true.
Around.
My call to action is to read something. I think reading informs so much of our worldview and how we understand each other and different cultures and ethnicity and history. And so I'm big on reading papers. I think papers are so hugely important. And some people say, well, I don't want to hear bad news. And it's like, guys, if you don't read a paper, you clearly don't understand that it's not just bad news. There are so many things happening that there are think pieces. There are, people who bear witness to extraordinary events across the globe. If you don't want to read a paper, if you do want to break, then read a book. I have so many amazing, wonderful books. Maybe one day I'll put out a reading list of suggested readings from me, but there are so many amazing books. So my advice is, at least this week, if you can, try to take at least 1 hour across the week to read something. And we have a lot of friends with books. So Joy Reid got a book. We told y'all about that.
You got a book?
I have a book. Say it louder.
Yes.
I got one in my head.
Andrew has one in his head. And there are a lot of books, pending books coming. So plenty out there to read.
I love that. I love you staying true to your journalism streak. Go read a paper. Go read. What you got for us, Angela?
Yes. So for my call to action, I'm going to throw to a listener question and respond on the other side.
Peace to the natives. This is Daniel Laurent, or as closed caption will call me, Daniel Lawrence. Just want to thank you so much for playing a record that I wrote for y'all. It genuinely was from the heart. I'm so supportive of all of you linking up.
Welcome home with the natives. Landing on a podcast space destined for greatness. 60 minutes or so hit, not too long for the great.
But I had a question, and I wanted to see if there was any thoughts or conversations about you all doing random pop-ups and doing live broadcasts, live podcasts. Because one, it would allow you to engage in a more personal, intimate way with the natives, and then also hopefully energize and galvanize people to go out and vote. Because as we're all hearing and I think seeing, people are just not excited about choices. And I'm just afraid people are going to be, choosing a couch instead. So I wanted to just kind of throw that out there. And if you do that, I'm going to pull up and introduce y'all. Cross the T's, dot the I's, get them back to get them. Stand on business, we'll ride. Out.
Dang.
Hey. Shout out to Daniel again. We so enjoyed the song. It was a moment of levity in our podcast, and we're really, really appreciative that we even have fans that would support in that way. I will say we have already started a little bit with this mini pod concept. As you all know, part 3 of Andrew's testimony came out last Monday, and we're going to start a mini pod concept. The next pod up will be one that explains the native land pod concept. When we say welcome home, we're talking about this virtual safe space that we created. When we say native land, we're talking about being true to our God, true to our native land that is absolutely the continent, but also embracing some of the very important and significant work that we've done here. We celebrate Black History Month all year around these parts. And then finally, I would say around these pop-ups and lives, we are talking about it. We know that this campaign season is kind of a drab. It's not really fun. We're not seeing a real primary, as it were. The Republicans hardly have a contest, even though they had a hell of a lot of people in there. And on the Democratic side, there's not really a primary when you have a sitting president in office. That's just the way it goes. And so why not have a native land pod campaign trail? That is what we're talking about. So what we want you to do on the other side of this, we know what Daniel's position is on this, but y'all, this is where we want you to weigh in. Make sure that you're following us on social media on all platforms at Native Land Pod. Let us know where you want us to come. Let us know your capacity to host us, and we're happy. Yes,
we happy because we happy. That's when you extra happy. You happy.
Happy to pull up. And that's exactly what we want to do. We want to welcome you home, even where you live, and we want to be on the campaign trail as we get closer to November.
I love that. Can I just piggyback on that? Music, I would love to do HBCUs, Angela, like talk to some of the younger folks. I love that idea. Some of the debates, maybe. So maybe people can drop in the comments where you want us to go.
Please let us know.
Yeah. If y'all want to see us, let us know. We happy to pull up.
There it is.
Cross the T's and dot the I's. Skill them back to get them. Stand on business, we'll ride. You could have been anywhere, but you chose us. Native Land Podcast, a brand that you can trust. Yes.
Before we end the show, I want to remind everyone to leave us a review. Subscribe to Native Land Pod. We're available on all platforms and YouTube. And of course, every Thursday, you can look forward to new episodes dropping. We are Angela Rye, Tiffany Cross, and I'm Andrew Gillum. Welcome home, y'all. And there are How many? 263 days until Election Day. Native Land Pod is a production of iHeartRadio in partnership with Reason Choice Media. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever it is you listen to your favorite shows.